Thank you, Chairman Doyle. Today, we're examining 4 years of lost opportunities at the FCC during the Trump administration. The actions and at times inactions of this FCC have had a significant impact in the lives of Americans, but often not for the better. We're likely to hear from the majority commissioners about their so-called accomplishments, but to me, it reads more like an industry wish list and pandering to the Trump administration that does not seem to care much about consumers. And here are just a couple of the most egregious examples of what the Republican-led FCC did. First, obliteration of net neutrality regulations that protect a free, fair, and open internet, and abdication of their responsibilities to the Federal Trade Commission. Second, near complete deregulation of media ownership rules, allowing big media conglomerates to eat up small and local stations. Third, eliminating environmental and tribal reviews and undermining local authority and protections to give companies the upper hand, even as we all know you can't streamline your way to universal broadband deployment. And fourth, using official government processes to allow President Trump to get back at Twitter for correctly labeling one of his tweets as false. And these examples are concerning, and thankfully the courts have stepped in to halt some of them. But I'm equally concerned about what the FCC under President Trump has ignored over the past 4 years. Rather than address the digital divide created by the lack of affordable broadband, the Republican-led FCC proposed drastic cuts to the Lifeline program. At the same time, we know they used fundamentally flawed data to claim progress closing the digital divide. And even during this unprecedented pandemic, as broadband has been vitally important to reducing the spread of COVID-19, the chairman has not promoted actions to significantly help the millions of families falling through the digital cracks. Most importantly, the FCC under Trump has not extended the E-rate program to cover the digital classrooms in students' and teachers' homes. Students, as we know, are huddled around fast food parking lots to get Wi-Fi connections. And just yesterday, the FCC took action on E-rate, but somehow forgot to let kids with internet or help kids with internet connectivity at home, where many of them are attending school and doing homework these days. And rather than expand the Lifeline program so that low-income Americans could work or attend doctor's appointments from home, the Republican-led FCC asked companies for a voluntary pledge to not cut off customers while allowing charges to pile up, and that pledge ended in August. The FCC has delayed work on network resiliency despite calls from the Democratic commissioners, sitting on the recommendations of two FCC reports for 2 years now that will improve the resiliency of communications networks. And those improvements are certainly needed right now as the West Coast faces devastating and destructive wildfires, while the Gulf Coast and the East Coast face Hurricane Sally. It's just a lot of missed opportunities. Even the massive $20 billion broadband deployment auction announced by the FCC is based on inaccurate data. Without proper maps, much of the money may be wasted and consumers left unserved. I just think we have to do better than this. Looking ahead, I believe these are some of the primary communications policies that we must work together to address. First, we must make sure that high-speed broadband is open, available, and affordable to everyone. Second, we must ensure that our communications networks are resilient. Voluntary agreements and industry roundtables are just not enough. Third, we have to secure our communications equipment supply chain from companies like Huawei and remain vigilant to guard against the threats to come. Fourth, we must have a thoughtful, coherent spectrum strategy and stop the interagency squabbles that the Trump administration has fanned. And fifth, we need to ensure that the modern broadcast television and radio industry still reflects our core media principles, and those are localism, diversity, and competition. And sixth, we must hold social media platforms accountable to the public, not thin-skinned demagogues, and discourage the misinformation, discrimination, and violence that undermines our society. So there's a lot that needs to be done, and I look forward to continue our work on these issues, and hopefully we'll hear some response to this from the witnesses that are here today. And with that, Chairman Doyle, I yield back.